Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deserts and Garden podcast. I'm Nathan, and this is my wife Mia.
If you're new here, hey, on this podcast, we share our daily highs and lows, but it's not just a highlight reel. Here, we actually share the realities of navigating marriage, faith, and our life together with God's guidance every step of the way.
So today we're going to be jumping into a topic that, is coming fresh off the heat of the weekend.
Yeah.
And, I feel like it's an area that a lot of us struggle with, and that is, the idea of, are we resting in God or are we being lazy?
Yeah, that's so good. So we're going to break it into 3 parts, as we do. First, we'll talk about what biblical rest actually looks like, because, spoiler alert, it is not just sitting around watching Netflix for 6 hours. Then we'll talk about how to avoid complacency while still prioritizing rest, because burnout, that ain't biblical either. Lastly, we'll wrap it up with some practical ways to find active rest. Some things that we do, we'll share things that refresh and restore us without making us spiritually or physically stagnant.
Absolutely, and this is why this is so important, because, in today's culture, we either feel guilty for resting, or we just confuse laziness with, self-care. But God calls us to true rest, one that, rejuvenates us and without making us spiritually complacent.
So, first, let's define rest the way that God does.
Absolutely, because our culture's definition of rest is basically, hey, let's do nothing. Let's binge a show, scroll endlessly, order out tonight instead of cooking. And then we're going to complain that we're still exhausted.
No, seriously, because that is exactly what is preached. That's what we see on TV shows. It's just, I think it's our flesh, too.
Right.
Is like, I want to unwind. I don't feel like doing anything. But then you sit on your phone and you're scrolling or you're watching TV. Like, that is, if we're honest and we look at our week, that is how we find rest. But it is not how God designed rest. In Genesis, after God created the world, he rested. But he didn't rest because he was tired. He rested to set an example for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And then in Matthew, he comes up and he says, "Come to me, all who labor, all who are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." That tells us that rest is found in him, and it's not found anywhere else. That means, rest was found in him. It doesn't mean rest is found in taking a nap or scrolling on Instagram, TikTok, whatever. It is
that's so good.
found in Jesus.
Yeah, just yesterday we were watching The Chosen, actually, where this verse came up, and Jesus is walking on the water, and Simon Peter goes up to him, and, Jesus is calling him. He says, "Come to me, all who are, weary and heavy laden." And when, Peter starts looking around, he starts sinking, and Jesus pulls him up out of the water, and in the Bible he says, you have little faith, why did you doubt? You have to keep your eyes on me, because it's in Jesus that we find rest. And in the show, when Jesus pulls him up, Peter is hugging Jesus, and he's like, "Don't let me go, don't let me go, don't let me go." And mentally, my first thought is I would probably be afraid, because we're in the middle of the ocean.
I would still be shocked that I walked on water.
Right. But then second, it's if you had finally grabbed a hold of Jesus and you had finally really put your eyes on Jesus, and he really genuinely gave you that rest, and you're able to unwind and pour all that out. It's don't let me go. That, I feel is that feeling that we're all looking for when we are so stressed and overwhelmed. And it was kind of emotional to watch, to just think that biblical rest it's not about stopping working. It's about reconnecting with God. It's about resetting our hearts, refocusing our minds, and allowing him to fill us up.
Yeah, absolutely. And, being a Christian, that comes with such an amazing responsibility and such a great gift. We were reading our Bible study earlier today. Being sealed with the Holy Spirit means that we get to rest in God. It means we get to trust God.
Yeah.
Even sometimes when we refuse to rest, because we think if I don't do this, if I don't get to this project, if I don't check my emails, the world is going to fall apart.
No, seriously.
I challenge you this. Rest can be an act of faith. Just taking a prayerful pause like we suggest.
Come on.
And just sit and be like, "God, I trust you to handle things while I take a step back." Kind of like cute Carrie Underwood singing, "Jesus, take the wheel."
All right. So here's where people get tripped up. If rest is good, when does it turn into laziness?
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's a difference between resting and just avoiding responsibility. Proverbs 13:4 says, the soul of the sluggard craves and gets nothing, while the soul of the diligent is richly supplied.
Right. So basically that means that rest should be intentional. It's not just an excuse to be unproductive.
Right. Like if you say, I need a break, but you're not actually taking a break, you're just procrastinating. That's not biblical rest. You're avoiding your responsibilities.
No, like, let's be real. We spend so much time being passive, and it doesn't make us feel better. When we put off the things that we need to do, we feel more stressed. We feel less rested. It usually makes us feel more drained, more anxious, more disconnected. Like, now, another day has gone by, and I have more to do, plus all the stuff that I didn't do today.
Absolutely. I mean, this is even reminding me of a time in a season in our life where I would come to you and I'm like, I am so exhausted. I'm working, crazy hours at the fire department. I'm putting all this time into, fixing up the house. I'm doing all this stuff. And Mel will pull up my calendar and like, well, what'd you actually do today? And I'll be like, well, I thought about like fixing the basement.
No,
I thought about doing this.
seriously.
I wasn't actually resting. And like those times where I was actually taking a break,
Yeah.
my mind was spinning 1,000,000 miles an hour thinking about everything I had to do.
That's so good.
I never actually took a breath. I never actually took a break.
Yeah, it's the thinking about what I need to do. Like, often I will now, when I catch myself being like, I gotta load the dishwasher, I gotta do the laundry, I gotta clean the bedding, I gotta, hang up the clothes. Like, I'm like, all right, but you're still sitting here. It's been 5 minutes.
Absolutely.
Like, you're just thinking about it. And if you get on Instagram or TikTok, you will continue thinking about that for the next 3 hours, and it won't get done.
Absolutely. And what I'm expressing here is like, you have to find balance.
Yeah.
If you're working nonstop and you're not going to take a Sabbath, that's a problem. But if you're, resting so much that your responsibilities are just piling up behind you and you're just like putting them off to another day and you're just procrastinating, that's also a problem.
Right. It's that I'll do it later and then later never comes. Like, that's probably a good sign that it's not rest, it's laziness.
Absolutely. So like we said, like resting isn't just binging TV or sleeping all day. What does it actually look like?
So rest, like we've kind of been alluding to for this entire episode, is rest is doing things that restore you, things that bring you peace, things that engage your mind and your soul.
Yeah, absolutely. Like for me, one of the best ways I find rest is listening to a podcast, just getting my mind engaged, having biblical men pour into me.
Right. I mean, for me, I like reading, I like playing the piano, I love our Bible studies that we do, or even cooking, but like when I'm not rushed or like pressed for time or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing is worship.
Ooh,
like resting doesn't have to mean doing nothing. Sometimes it could just be playing music. Like frequently I'll come in the house and, Elevation Worship will be blasting on all my Alexes. We call out Alexa Alexes, but she'll key up if we spell your name.
Yeah.
But like I was saying, playing worship music, praying, or just even sitting quietly in God's presence is exactly what we need.
Yeah, like that is rest. And honestly, even sometimes just a good conversation, like having real deep conversations with, each other, like our podcast. It's kind of why we started, because we're always doing this anyway, just for fun. Or even with my friends, like when I, get together with my wives' crew and we are just talking and pouring out into each other our experiences, what we've gone to, like that could be so refreshing. And the Bible says, I don't remember exactly what the verse is, but it says, like, he who refreshes others will himself be refreshed.
Yeah.
And it's like when we're helping other people, when we're giving, when we're serving, even that is refreshing. Like serving on Sundays. It's like when I get off of a Sunday, I'm like pumped. I'm like so amped and ready to take on the week.
So it's not because you heard the service 3 times?
It could also be that.
The key here is to ask yourself, does this actually restore me? Or am I just like zoning out and just getting through it? Because biblical rest should leave you feeling like, more amped up, like my wife is saying, like just ready to go, ready to take on, more feeling connected to God.
Not just turning your brain off.
Right. And not just, exactly, disconnected from life.
Yeah. So here's the takeaway. Rest is good. Rest is necessary. But it shouldn't ever make us complacent. Shouldn't lead to laziness.
Yeah, and laziness might feel good in the moment, but it never actually satisfies.
Yeah.
True rest comes from trusting God and being intentional about how we recharge.
Yeah, so I do just want to say at the end of this episode, maybe should have said at the beginning, is we are not perfect at this. There are definitely times where, you know, we're binge watching TV shows or we're sleeping in until, I think the other day we slept in until like 10 o'clock.
Yeah, no.
And my ring was like not happy with me. But I just want to say, this week, ask yourself, how am I resting regularly? Is this something that I'm regularly doing? Am I checking out? Or am I actually being refreshed in a way that honors God?
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, you know, and I just want to reiterate, we are not perfect.
Yeah.
We're not saying like, hey, we are the model. You need to model yourself after. We're flawed.
Yeah.
We're humans, you know. We're also just a Christian couple trying to figure it out, just like many of you are.
Yeah.
But we're just trying to share some tips that help us.
Yeah, some things that, like, all of these podcast topics are things that we're learning, are things that we're growing in, and we're sharing this to be a light, to be an encouragement, not from a place of a rival or we're perfect and, you know, we got it all down. It's like, hey, no, these are things that God's put on our heart.
Yeah.
And maybe that might resonate with one of you.
Yeah, right. So, you know, if this episode spoke to you, just let us know. Like, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, leave a review, and, you know, it definitely helps us reach other people.
Yes, and if you're listening on YouTube, make sure to smash that like button and leave a comment down below. And make sure that you're subscribed to our channel so that you don't miss tomorrow's episode.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening to the Deserts and Garden podcast. Until next time, walk in love.
Live with purpose
And trust God in every desert and garden.
See ya.